Yo, if you want to skip ahead to where we specifically talk about politics, head over to the 27-second mark of the episode. Hi, welcome to For the Culture Canada, the center point of art and entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Deepak Batty, and today I have something a little bit different. I'm, of course, interviewing a musician. However, he's also running for city council. He's quite well established here in Kelowna and quite well known. You know, every person that I talk to that I say I'm interviewing this person, they're like, oh yeah, I know who that is. Yeah, I'm, of course, interviewing Jeff Piattelli. He is a great musician. He's had his music on, motion picture soundtracks. He's had his music on the radio, and he's played lots of different live shows. And I'm very, very excited to have him. I've known him actually for quite a bit now, but this is the first time we get to actually sit down and
spend
chat
some
together.
Quality time.
Yeah. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
No worries. You're having a busy day so far, so we'll keep this concise. And what I want to do is that I want to divide this interview into two parts. The first part will be about the music, get to know you a little bit, and then the second part will be the politics.
Okay.
So, first of all, let's start into this. Jeff, where did you grow up, and how did you get to the place that you're at now?
All right. So I'm born and raised in Kelowna, and I love the city so much, and it's such a beautiful city, and I feel so thankful to have lived here and just so many great memories. And as long as I can remember, I've always had a really deep love for music, and it's always been a big part of my life. And if you look through my baby book, actually, my parents, right when I was born, were hoping that I would take an interest in guitar, which is funny that I end up to be a musician who plays guitar. So it's kind of cool. So yeah, I'm all self-taught with my guitar playing and my singing. And I've done, without a joke, I don't say this weirdly, probably almost 1,000 live events in my life. I've played so many live events and spent so much time playing guitar, and I still just love it so much. And it's my thing. It's what I like to do. So
yeah. When did you exactly start?
So I've been. So it's kind of a long story with me. I don't know if everyone really fully knows this. I mean, I guess we might as well get deep if we're going to do this, right?
Dive in, man.
So you know what? When I was younger, I had a bit of a tough time in school, just with kind of fitting in, I guess you could say. Excuse me. And through that, it's kind of a weird thing to go from being on that side of things, and then that kind of drove me to get really good at music. And because I almost felt like I didn't really have much else at that time at a young age, and so at about grade 7 was kind of the turning point for me. So actually, I moved schools when I was in grade 7, which for me, when I look back, is pretty crazy because I don't necessarily love change too much. I like to kind of have my thing. So when I look back, I must have really been in a tough spot. And so I moved schools, and here's me. I'm kind of figuring myself out at that age, and feeling not my best self. And then I start playing guitar, and I met this friend at this new school I went to. And this kid, when I look back, he really turned my life around in so many ways. It's funny how there's people you meet in your life that at the time you don't really realize their importance. It's Devin Kyle, for those. Shout out to Devin. So he loved guitar, and we had a great bond right away, and we became really good friends. And that's where my love for kind of guitar playing and music went past its kind of infancy stage, you could say. And that's when I really was like, I can find like-minded people who are my friends, and we can play music, and I can go from being someone who doesn't feel cool and feel like I fit in. And again, not that that's the only reason I did it. That's not why I did it. It's just what led me to that. You know what I mean? Because I felt like that was my outlet. And as I got better at music, you slowly start, and it might sound kind of lame, but as I got better at music and kind of more in touch with people, then all of a sudden I am starting to fit in more, and I am feeling more confident, and I am so that was just like a downward, or not downwards. That was just kind of got the ball rolling for me. You kind of gain some confidence, you find something you're good at. And, so long story short, all through high school, I was that guy who I literally rode the bus with my guitar. I played guitar at lunch break. I'll never forget, I opened up the air band at KSS in grade 12. So I played just me and my guitar in front of, I don't know, it had to have been probably close to 500 people. The whole gym was full, right?
Was that your first gig?
That was so I just was telling this story to someone, when I think of that moment, I get I get so emotional because it was such an incredible turning point. I'll never forget that image in my entire life. Like, I can remember the song that was playing right before I came on, and it was just kind of like a moment for me where I had gone through so many downward moments in my life, and I had fought through so many things to get back to feeling like I wanted to be, because I've always wanted to be the best, like, you know what I mean? And I've always been competitive, and I hated not feeling like I was worth anything. And so for me, that moment when I like spent all this time playing guitar and got my name out, and then I was offered this spot, and I walked up on that stage to a full gym of people who were like my critics, my peers, my friends, just me and my guitar, and I played, and like, that was for me the most life-changing thing. And it just gave me such a fire under me to keep it going. And it's kind of a long answer, but I feel like it's important just with my story, right? Like, this is what has led me to where I am. And whether it's music, whether it's drawing, whether it's acting, whether it's photography, you know, find something you enjoy, and you know, the happiness that brings you is going to bring happiness in other areas of your life. And for me, I just found that I was always so rewarded when I invested my time in music, as opposed to like wasting my time, you know, doing this or doing that. You know, I was using my time productively, and it was paying off to the point now where like I'm so thankful that I get to call it a career now, because I did enjoy it, and I did put in the time, you know, my whole life to get to this point. So long answer, but you know, I feel like it's really cool for me. Like, I'm super proud of that. Like, I'm super proud that I was able to kind of overcome being that kid who was kind of the outcast, and work my way into feeling like, you know, I was part of something and belonging. So
Yeah.
it's been really cool, man. It's been life changing. Like, everything I have, and I mean that honestly. Like, I met my girlfriend and we have a child. We just had a child together couple weeks ago, and I met her at a live music event that I was playing. So it's like everything I have in my life that I'm thankful for, I have because of music, like through music. And it's just amazing how that all goes, you know?
Yeah. Music is a wonderful thing, right? It unites people in so many incredible ways.
Yeah.
Now, if you were such an outcast and you felt so sort of like, oh, you know, you didn't feel like you fit in all that well, what made you love the city as much as you do?
So, you know what? I think that's what's given me an appreciation for the city, is that from that point, and again, I'm not perfect, and I've had, you know, times where I wish I would have acted differently, but I feel like on the grand scheme of things, I've always tried to include everybody. And like, because I knew what that felt like to not be included, and I knew what it felt like to kind of be depressed and be just like feeling like you had nothing to really. So now, you know, when I look back, in high school, all through high school, when I was starting to like kind of flip my life around, I always took the time to talk to people who I felt were like kind of feeling how I felt back in the day. And I've always just wanted to make them feel special as well and important, because it's tough seeing people around you maybe doing things that you want to be doing, or feeling like you're not comparable to them. Like, it's awful. And so to answer your question, I want to give back, and I want to be a voice for people that I am close with and that I care about. And, you know, I'm not in it for anything besides I want to make a difference in the community. And I think I really do have a story to tell and experience, and I think people don't take me seriously, but if they could see in my life, I've overcome a lot of things that could have really set me on a different path, and I've always come through and worked hard to come out on the other side better, and I think I can use that to help the city. So
yeah, 100%. And in terms of like coming through to the other side, you've actually accomplished something that tons of people in the city want to achieve, which is actually making what you're doing, what you love, you're living, right? Like, that's something incredible. You're doing that with your music. Tons of musicians here want to accomplish that, which is really incredible, man. I got to commend you on that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. And you said you did that 2 years ago. You made that decision, right?
Yeah. So I was balancing, I was working, bartending, kind of like managing job, as well as playing music. So I was really busy for a while, and well, I'm always really busy, but for a while, like, I was crazy busy. I was like, you know, I'd work all day at the bar, and then I'd go and play all night. And, you know, that work ethic and not saying no, and like, not saying no, like, you know, you want to play events that are good for you and your image. But, you know, I always made an effort to be the best I could and do my best, work. And yeah, so the last 2 years I've done nothing but music.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I wanted to talk to you about like your albums that you had put out. When it comes to like, okay, so you had put out an album called Listen In 2008. And you know, the troubling thing about it is that like, it's not available anywhere. Like I had to like really like search for it to find it. Like, why is that?
Oh, really? Where'd you go?
So like, okay, so if you go onto like Spotify, if you go onto like Bandcamp, if you go onto like different websites like that, you have Listen In on MySpace, but you don't have it on those other websites. You have your next album, The Waves on there, right? So it's like...
Yeah, I have the acoustic stuff on my Reverb Nation, which is kind of... I think just because I wanted to showcase my newer stuff, and... Which is funny though, you say that, because a lot of times when people are booking me, they kind of want to sample my acoustic stuff.
Right.
So just the other day I sent them like one of those songs, because like I really truly think, without as humbly as possible as it is, I really feel like for where I was at in my life and like my age, like that first album I did was really something special. I really think that, and I think I still listen to those songs and I'm just like amazed that like those thoughts were even in my head. Like I feel like it was really ahead of where I was at in my life. And so like, you know, sometimes maybe you are hard on yourself, so I maybe hid them, or I don't know, whatever the reason. But I guess to answer your question, I will make them available on all platforms.
Yeah, because I know that like when I heard the first song, it clearly struck to me, like it set the tone for the album, that it's a very biographical album, right?
Yeah.
Like the first song, you talk about yourself. You're talking about how you want to be that guy. You want to be the guy that like makes music and doing his thing, and then you exactly did that.
Yeah,
you know,
it's pretty crazy.
Which is sick. Which is super sick. And then as you jumped into The Waves in 2017, it was nearly a decade after your last album came out. You really matured in your sound, right? Like it's so much more varied in terms of like how you play the instruments and everything like that, and just it's really cool to see your growth go from there to there. In terms of like your mindset and recording and writing, what was it like between the first album and the second album?
So I think there was actually another album in between that.
Was there?
Yeah, there was. It had a couple of kind of like updated versions and some newer songs. I think that was 2012 when I put that out. It wasn't like anything too crazy, but I've put out kind of like individual songs throughout that time. Like otherwise it seemed like a pretty big gap. So the writing process for that first one, I don't know, it was to touch on that airband thing. Like that whole phase of my life, writing those songs was like, it's like a scrapbook in my mind. Like I'll never... Sometimes I'll walk outside and like certain days will remind me of certain days when I can remember writing like beautiful things, which is, you know, if you're a Jeff Piattelli fan, which hopefully we got a couple of you out there, probably one of the songs you enjoy. So it's like, it's cool because for me, especially taking into account my story, and when I wrote that album, I had just like, it was like I had climbed this mountain, and I'd finally like hit the top and like seen the light in the back. Like it was just so unbelievable, because I was writing these songs that I couldn't even believe I was writing. I was just like the words were so, it just was like so my own style. Like I remember when I was in, like I was like 16 or something. I remember my MySpace had like 25,000 streams or something. And like I was a kid in high, and like, you know, nowadays it's not anything crazy, but that was like pretty much at the infancy of that kind of thing. And, you know, for a 16-year-old kid, I thought, wow, like, within my area, 25,000 times people have listened to these songs. And I remember I took a lot of pride in that. And it was just like a combination of kind of coming into my own and like this growing love for music. And, you know, like I had mentioned, I'd always had my guitar with me in high school, like always. And when I look back, I can't believe how much people like put up with me playing guitar, honestly. So it's cool. Like I just had so many things going on, and you're young, and like, you know, so many things in your life at that time, you know what I mean? You're experiencing things for the first time. And I just felt like looking back, that first album was like a really cool kind of like snapshot into my life at that time. And, I'm really proud of it. I really am.
Hell yeah, dude.
And then like this newer stuff, the stuff I released recently is, you know, going for a little bit more, I don't want to say mainstream, but like a little more of like something that could play on the radio.
Yeah.
You know, like a little, like full band and a lot more kind of beat and rhythm to it. But it's just a different thing. Like I really appreciate my early songs for the lyrics, especially. Like to this day, I don't know what came over me with that spell. I just was like really in my own style of lyrics and like writing. And then as my older stuff, I feel like my guitar playing really came through. Like just like, how I like to play guitar and like kind of a little more bouncy kind of riffs and stuff. So like I was kind of taking more of that kind of approach with the second stuff. But I was actually, I think people think that I don't write a lot. When in fact, like if you were to go, I've spent, there was times where months, every night I was spending hours with like my loop pedal writing songs. Like I have literally thousands of voice memos on my phone of things that honestly I still sometimes will go back because there's things that are like really amazing in my phone. I just haven't, because of everything, kind of the route I've taken with my business and music, I just haven't really developed those fully. Like I spend a lot of time writing, and like I'm always, I think I have a really good sense of melody, and I don't just play covers as maybe some people might think. And especially now, like when I play now, I'm really, I really like the direction that my kind of set has, the direction it's come, is because I do a lot of kind of breaking between instrumental, upbeat, kind of like R&B guitar with my own originals, and then some like, covers people know, and it kind of keeps everyone happy. Like you got the covers you want to hear. I get to play some originals that I wrote, and I get to like have fun playing guitar. And honestly, the guitar playing, people seem like the guitar playing almost the most. And that's what's really cool is like for me, I've spent, they say you have to spend 10,000 hours on something to, I don't want to say master it, but like I hit 10,000 hours a long time ago. So it's cool. It's cool when, I went and played this event for like 400 people this week, and I freestyled a 2-hour set, like just one thing into the next, like smooth transition like a DJ, but I'm playing everything live, and like I'm thinking of it on the spot in my head. And like afterwards, I said to Angie, my amazing girlfriend,
shout out to
love you, Angie. I told her, I was like, you know what, it's pretty cool, and I'm pretty proud of myself that I can go up in front of that many people and like professionally put together a set like as I'm feeling it, and like people are digging it. Like so many people come up and say how much they enjoyed it, and for me that's kind of like my mark of like my craft. Like I've spent enough time where you put me in front of anyone and I'll entertain them, and I have something to offer for everyone. And I think that that's what's allowed me to do music full time, is that I've adapted. And I started out like, playing a lot of slower kind of G chord songs, and that's great. Like you have to, and there's nothing wrong with continuing to do that. But for me personally, I just found in order to encompass a wider range of events and in order to be as busy as possible, I needed to learn how to do like, the upbeat cover shows or the background jazzy guitar gigs, or, a mix of the two. And through that, like my playing has just reach unbelievable levels in these last few years because I spend so much time playing. Like today, for example, I'm playing at Rotary Center for the Arts from 5 to 7, and then I go over to the El Dorado and play 8 to 11.
Wow.
It's like just today, and like I spent all morning playing guitar. So not all morning, but like, I picked up my guitar for sure a couple times as I had a few minutes this morning. So just today, I'm going to be spending over 5 hours playing and singing guitar.
There you go.
Some people don't even spend that in a month, you know what I mean? And they're trying to learn. It's like, for me, my knowledge is just so rapidly growing because I spend so much time, and like I'm so in tune with guitar, and I'm living it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's my advice to anyone. If you want to do something and excel at it, like you have to live it, and you have to truly love it and want to do it in your spare time, and that's the only way you're gonna take it to that next level. So
yeah. And by the way, you addressed on something that I want to really, really tell you about. You said you have over 1,000 voice memos, dude. Have you ever heard of music memos?
The app?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Okay. After this interview, I'm
mind blown,
dude. I'm not even kidding. Music memos for any musician is the best shit ever.
Oh, how have I not heard of it?
Oh man, I don't know, man, but I'll show you. I promise.
Okay, I'll check it out.
But I wanted to actually ask for your advice for anybody that's a musician listening to this. How do you break through and become a musician that's living on your music? How do you do that? What was your process like?
So, again, a lot of being successful or reaching that next step in anything is being prepared for when those moments kind of come your way. And I have been doing this for a long time, and I've been obsessed with playing guitar, and I've lived music for, 15 years kind of thing. So when I was starting out, before money was like a concern to my life, and I just loved, and I still love playing music, obviously, but like when I just was in it because I truly would just loved playing music, and like I was learning about it, and I was a kid, like I would do any event that was offered to me, right? Like whether I was getting paid, whether I wasn't, I just like wanted to get out there. And because I spent a good couple of years just doing that kind of thing, like not really getting any, reward or anything. I just did it because I wanted to do it, and I put in the time. And, I was just having this conversation when he was asking me this exact same question. And, there was a lot of times, like, I wish I could keep track of every email I've ever sent in my life. Like, I think that's why it bugs me when people kind of want to pin me as like Mr. Cover Guy, because they have like literally no idea the stuff that goes on behind the scenes for me to be able to play music full time.
Yeah.
And like the amount of stuff I'm doing all on my own. Like I don't have anybody working with me. I'm doing all my booking, promotion, all my maintained business relationships, buying all my gear, learning everything myself. But because of that, I've now made myself into a reputable person, I think. And now someone that people can trust, like they can hire and get the result they want. So to answer your question, it's like I put in a lot of time hitting the pavement and a lot of time like paying my dues. And again, I rode the school bus every day with my guitar in my hand. Like this wasn't something that I developed overnight. Right. And it's something that like, we took our photo. I said, I want to hug my guitar for the photo. Like I used to fall asleep with my guitar. Like it's part of me. And for me, I put in the work at the start. I wasn't worried about what I was getting back out of it. And because of that, and because I was doing it in a professional manner, slowly I was getting offered gigs that were paid gigs, and like, this is what I tell people. And it's not that you can't do, and I encourage you to do stuff for the community, and if you have a great cause that someone wants you to play for or do whatever else, like do it. But once you start on your path, and especially if say it's music, and say you start making money with music, you need to keep somewhat of a consistency. So if someone asks me, what do you charge for a wedding for this many hours? And then I give them a quote, and then someone else emails me and they say, what do you charge for this? And I'm off, like I give a different quote. Now all of a sudden I'm held accountable for like, well, why is it different for like, why is it less or why is it more for me? So my point is like, once you start on that path and you've kind of proven your worth and you have something to offer, like, and you start making some money with it, your goal should always be to keep that going and like to keep improving that and keep that number. And again, greed is not good. And greed, I've learned in a lot of ways, you don't want to be greedy because greed will ruin your chances of doing anything for work. But within a, how do I say this? There's two people in a business relationship. So you want to make sure that both people are happy. If you want to continue to get work, like you can't be gouging people because you think you're hot stuff. And, so I think for me, a lot of times people, they'll ask me like, what do you charge? Like, how do you get to your quote, or how do you kind of like gauge that? And there's a lot of factors. Like, I have 15 years experience behind me. I'm bringing all the gear that I'm bringing with me. So there's a lot of things that kind of like are part of this equation to how I end up charging someone. But the way I was able to get in a point where I can charge people is that, I put in the hard work, and sometimes people think like I host a lot of open mics and stuff. And it's kind of tough. And this is something that I think maybe I just think about, and like, maybe it's just in my head, but I've honestly thought about it. I host these jam nights for people who want to come and kind of like up their game. And thankfully I've hit a point where like I can do this for work. So sometimes I wonder if people like almost don't want to come out because they don't want to like, not support me, but like they don't want them to help me out any more than like maybe I already feel like I'm getting helped out. So they don't want to come out to my open mic or my jam night. And maybe that's totally in my head and that could just be me. But where I'm going with this is I've seen people who aren't like that, who come out to my open mics or a open mic or wherever this jam night could be with anybody. And they show up the first night and they leave, or they develop into someone completely different by the time that process is through. And I've seen people who who are equally as talented, who weren't doing music for work, but they showed up to these jam nights and put their time in and honed their craft and like made some contacts to the point now they are getting paid gigs, and now like things are going really good. So you can't look at it like, and again, hopefully it doesn't sound bad. Like I don't want, not that I judge people if you don't come to my open mic, but I feel like don't do it out of like spite for someone. Like don't better yourself out of potential spite because you think someone else is like doing okay or good or whatever. You know, we all have our own struggles, and you got to put in the time. You can't look at it like anything more than that. And you can't be like, oh, well, I don't want to help Jeff because, you know, I want to be there, but I'm not. It's like, it's not about that. Like you come out and like, we're a team to get you better, to make you feel like you can go out and do what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. I mean,
you know?
Honestly, dude, though, I don't think people are going or not showing up to like spite you or anything, right?
No, and
I think that there's lots of different factors when it comes to, because people that go to open mic nights, they're often quite young and they haven't had very much live experience yet. And, you know, artists are sensitive people. Like, you know, I am, and blah, blah, blah. And so, and for the people that are doing it for the very first time, they often are scared. They're nervous or whatever. And so that's intimidating. You know, the crowd for the first time, that's intimidating.
That's true.
And everything like that. You know, people often have also conflicting schedules and blah, blah, blah. But the thing though, you know what, man, you're like, since you're such a facet in this community, like people, regardless of what you might think, you are a objective facet in this place that if people want to look at music, your name will be mentioned because you are a very good candidate for a crowd pleasing musician, right?
Yeah.
Like you make music that is very pleasing to lots of different kinds of people. You know, it's got like the very John Mayer type sound to it, which I'm sure it's not the first time you've heard people say that.
That's what I'm going for.
Yeah. And so like, you know, to see somebody that's sort of a little bit more of a community leader as an actual musician that lives off of your work in Kelowna, I think that provides actually quite a lot of sort of guidance for people that want to start out doing what you're doing.
You know what? With this whole city council thing, I could just keep doing this music. It's like I'm happy with either outcome, and I more so just thought that this was a good opportunity for me to try to make a difference and be a voice. And if it doesn't work out, then you know, at least I tried, and I'm thankful that like my music is at a point where I can still keep doing that, and things are great, and I've got a awesome family at home, and honestly, life is really great right now. So I'm just happy with everything. Whatever happens, I'm good with.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And when it comes to your city council stuff, there are 3 issues that you said you wanted to tackle. One of which is the Kelowna travel, so the transit system and everything like that, the homelessness, and also affordable housing.
Yes.
So in terms of like the Kelowna travel, there's 2 options that you can go about doing this. There might be even more, you know, you could think of various different things, but one of the issues that people find here is that a lot of the through traffic, like, you know, just semi trucks and like things like that, people just going through the city kind of congests it, you know, for the local traffic. Or you could also say that like there's just not enough roads in general to allow people to go through their day. So, I mean, in terms of options, do you have any particular ideas of what we could do to sort of like better that, or better even the public transit system here?
Yeah. So I think there's multiple different factors to that problem or solution, however you want to word it. But as far as the congestion goes with the traffic going through the town, I honestly think that I know the highways we're not in control of the highways, but I think with the right steps, we could make changes. I personally think that we have so many lights. Like if you go from the bridge out to like Sexsmith area, there are so many lights and like so many stops, and it's hard to get any kind of flow to any traffic, whether it's like passing or from our residents. So I personally feel, and that's not just for the highway, by the way. There's other roads where I feel like the crossing or the intersecting road is a very underused road that we're like taking up the space and a light for the people where 90% of the traffic is going the other way. Right. So in my opinion, like you go to a lot of big cities or bigger cities or on the route to cities that have kind of a nice flow to them, you have your main highway and you have your exits with like the overpasses, right? Mm-hmm. You know, overpasses obviously are going to take some money to build. So maybe that's something you think about after, but I do think that eliminating some lights and having it as more of like an exit system. And then, if you're on the intersecting road, you just take a right to go back on the highway. If you do that, instead of having like a stoplight, I feel like there's a few spots where taking out one or two of those, or, maybe more, would maybe increase the flow of things a little bit. Besides that, I know everyone's wanting to look for kind of greener solutions with transportation. And through speaking with some of the residents, I was speaking with a gentleman the other day who is in a wheelchair. And, people like us, I maybe take for granted how easy it is to get around. And he was saying how a lot of the sidewalks are kind of poorly built and like really kind of uneven and don't make him really feel that safe when he's trying to traverse that. So, that's something that we don't really think about that much, and I started thinking about it, like, if I had to get around Kelowna in a wheelchair or on a scooter, how would I feel? Like So, he had a really valid point that some areas, I think we need to take another look and kind of improve those sidewalks and maybe allow. That's not for the grand scheme of things, but obviously there's a section of our residents who are struggling with that, and I think that's important that we look after that. Mm-hmm. And also our transit system is awful. Like, and I don't mean that in any disrespect, but it's, I hear so many stories of people being early for their bus stops and the bus has already left. Like, we already have a pretty minor transit system, I think, for what we need. And we can't have, like, a schedule is a schedule, especially for something like a bus. And when people are relying on that to get to work or whatever. And again, I've been kind of stressing how everything is so intertwined.
Yeah, 100%.
And, so say you miss the bus, and I have a couple friends who don't drive, that's just because of choice of where they're at. But, you take a cab and you're shelling out like $40 to $100 depending on where you're going. And for someone who is already to relate to this point of being intertwined, we're trying to find affordable housing and ways to make living here more manageable. It starts with this bus being here on time to pick this person up so they don't have to spend $50 to get to work. And then, it's all like, we need to help our residents out and give them the best chance of making a means. And they're working hard, and we need to give them the means we need to do our end, So when I hear people who, like, these students who are like, I'm 10 minutes early for my bus and I missed my bus, it's like, well, like, that's not acceptable. We need to have bus drivers be accountable. And I just say that because I think that's a nice, cost-effective solution to, like, maybe help things a little bit, is like kind of get a little more reliable of a transit system. Maybe we add a couple more buses or increase the time that they run. Little things like, I truly think that the taxi industry needs a little bit of competition. Like, I don't know how anyone is supposed to take a cab all the time, unless you're a millionaire, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I was just going to say, like, even on weekends, on like a late night, when you're trying to find a cab, they're very hard to find sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, honestly, I was just in New York City. Getting an Uber was an incredible experience. I genuinely believe that having an Uber-like system here in Kelowna would be fantastic.
Yeah.
You know
what? You shouldn't be paying $40 to drive 5 minutes up the road and back. No. Like, and my friend just paid that the other night, and my eyes popped out of my head. I said, "You paid what? Like $40? Like, some people can drive for a week almost on $40, depending on what you're driving." You know what I mean? And it's So that's one solution. We've added some roundabouts, which I think are effective and help. That's kind of as far as the traffic goes. I think we are confined to a fairly small space, and we've kind of gone pretty far to make anything too drastic of a change. But there are some things I think that could help that along. And to touch on the other 2 points.
So the other one was the homelessness, and the other one was also the affordable housing.
The affordable housing, yeah. So the homeless thing, as you could imagine, is a very complex issue. And there's many things to take into account when trying to either, like, move a group like that or deal with them or give them help. There's either going to be a lot of money involved with, potentially building a new... whether it's like a safe injection site or somewhere for them just to get help. So I just know they're planning on building something on the Agassiz area, which is actually it's not too far from here.
Right.
So they want to build like a residence for people. And after speaking with the mayor, it's not even for like and I don't mean this at all. It might sound poorly. Like, it's not for the lowest of the low. And I just mean like people who are potentially a harm to other people around them. I mean, he was explaining how it's for people who are kind of like just almost back on their feet, but need like a little bit of help. And I think that's great. I think it's, some people sadly are kind of past help, and that's just the reality of it. And I think that spending too much time, we in my opinion, I want to focus the time on those who truly want to help themselves and get better.
Yeah.
And so where I was going with this, two parts of this. So the people surrounding that area are all unhappy because, obviously there's a stigma with those kind of people. And I'm just saying in general, like obviously people seem to think there's a stigma with having that kind of group there. So running for council, I've received numerous emails of people kind of expressing their, they don't want that to happen. They don't want their child to feel unsafe. They don't want the businesses to kind of suffer. So it's one of those things where no matter where they go, someone's kind of like, why are they here? And sadly, that's just kind of part of the problem. And so we're going to have to just kind of accept that. And we got to give them somewhere. In my personal view, Kelowna is a very tourist heavy town, and we rely a lot on our tourism. And if that's the case, our downtown core needs to be safe. It needs to be very clean and got a really nice, welcoming image to it. And I think if there's a way to ethically move these people and give them a new start, maybe away from the downtown core, you look at Leon Street. Leon Street is completely unusable right now. It's full of empty buildings, and it's right by the beach. It's almost one of the most prime spots in the whole city, and it's literally abandoned. We can't have that. We're wasting valuable real estate and with no results.
Yeah.
And not to keep going on here, but I wanted to touch on the idea of safe injection sites, because it's kind of a relatively new thing that I've been kind of researching, and my views on it are, I was speaking with a lady at the college a couple of days ago, and we were talking about this, and she said, well, what about those like old residents who have done drugs their whole life and they don't really have any other, pretty much they don't have any hope of getting better kind of thing, right? So, we need to give them a safe injection site. And I agree that harm reduction is obviously a good thing. But I also think that if we're going to be spending money on these sites and like giving these people this place, we should be trying to take people in who are genuinely wanting to get better. Like, I don't think we just take people who have given up and, okay, well, here, like, do your thing here, and like, it's all good. Like, I feel like, we should be motivating them to try to get better. And if we're going to spend the money, let's make it effective, and let's not, and again, everyone's human and everyone deserves to be treated with respect. But if they're not wanting to put the effort forward to get better, then, maybe we just let them do their thing. I don't know. That's just my personal thought. It's a touchy subject, but I truly think that it starts with you. And if you want to make a change, you have to do it. We can definitely give you the resources, but let's deal with people who are in that mindset, So
yeah. I agree with you on the safe injection sites. I do think they're a great idea, because what they also do is that they provide people with first aid care available for them. So if there's somebody that's going through like an overdose or anything like that, or even a fentanyl crisis, it prevents death by having Noxolin kits available for them to get better with, versus, doing it in some alleyway. They, take fentanyl and then they pass away, unfortunately, right? A lot of these people have families, right? And unfortunately mistakes happen. So I agree with you on the safe injection sites for sure.
Yeah. And again, I want to stress again that everyone does have family, and everyone should feel like they are part of something. And, I just think, obviously I don't want people to hurt themselves. And like, obviously I don't want them to spread hurt to anybody else. I just think that if we're going to be funding places or potentially like building a place or whatever else, let's try to like get some results out of it. Like, it's a safe place for them to do it, but hopefully we can have some help for them as well to like, maybe they don't need to do that anymore. So again, it's such a complex issue. And I just think that we need to come together as a community mostly and be, I said with Kelowna Now in my interview, I played music my whole life. And as I told you earlier, I've known what it's like to not fit in and not feel like you're have anything to offer. And I know what it feels like to like feel like part of the community and feel like you have something to offer them. And I feel like it's such a life-changing thing when you feel like you have that purpose. And, it starts with everyone around us and making everyone feel like they are just as good as the next person,
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And then the additional topic that you wanted to, actually, before I get into that, I wanted to say that have you heard of the Journey Home action plan that is being laid out currently?
Yes.
Yeah. What do you think about it so far?
Well, I think that, giving anyone some help, and I think that having these, some of them nonprofit or some of these organizations in town that don't really get the funding that they need. Like there's a lot of people who are, I think, already trying to help this issue. And a lot of time, like In for the Cold, remember, is they're almost like facing being not even a thing anymore, right? Like, so that's a huge asset for these people that we're kind of taking away. So anything that we can give them that's going to give them either like a place to live or like a roof over their head or support, I'm all for any of that stuff. We need to try something. We can't just ignore them and shame them and everything else. But
100%. Yeah. I think that for those of you that don't know, the Journey Home Action Plan is a 5-step program that actually involves community members from various different types, organizations, government agents that come together and actually form a very strong solution to what is going on with all the homeless people. What they do is that they provide a housing system for people that are chronically homeless or people that just need a little bit of help. And they're currently actually looking for an executive director, if in case you know anybody that is good for that position. There are applications online that you can sign up for, but they have meetings ongoing and they're going through this transition process up until the spring. And then afterwards, they're going to put the plan in motion. So it's a really great idea. I think it lines up with what you're trying to do, Jeff, with the, remedying the homeless issue, because of course, every person deserves a home. They need to have, a roof over their head and everything. And so I think with your goals, it'll line up quite well.
Yeah.
And it also helps out then the affordable housing thing as well, because it creates affordable housing for people that can't get it. But that is one issue that you did want to address with what you're doing. Were you thinking like maybe creating... Do you think that more homes that are just, in apartments would be a better solution, like building more like dense apartment buildings in Kelowna is a better solution? Or do you think that maybe something along the lines of like more homes just in Kelowna in general?
Well, as someone who was an owner of a condo unit and was pretty much unlawfully told I couldn't stay once I had my child...
Really?
Yeah, so that's a whole other story. But where I'm going with that is I've kind of realized that condos are great. The condo was great for me when I was just kind of like by myself. But, you hit a point where sometimes you might need more room. And don't get me wrong, like if you can buy a condo, great. But sometimes there's a lack of like more than that in Kelowna. And a lot of it, we just think we can build these like little 300 square foot condos. And I guess it's, I understand it's supposed to be affordable housing and I realize it's supposed to be kind of cheaper, but I also think that, maybe we build, I know they were speaking about doing multifamily unit housings, right? So like, or maybe you do more of like the duplex kind of things, or where it's more of maybe a smaller house as opposed to the condos. Cause I feel like, I know for me, my whole life was turned upside down because I had to kind of figure out a backup plan. Cause I wasn't planning on that. And I didn't realize that was going to be going down. So for me, I could have, thankfully it worked out, but I could have been in a very tough situation if everything I'm looking at is $1 million or whatever. And it's few and far between. It's a pretty serious thing when you got a kid on the way and you're starting a family. So you want to have some kind of security. And I think that, again, those little condos are great and they serve a lot of people, especially with our university and our students. I think it's awesome for that. But, there's older residents as well who maybe have families who maybe want to own a home one day, or, they want to kind of take that next step. And I think there's a lot. I live in Glenmore right now, and Glenmore seems to be right at that point where it's about to flourish. And I really think there's a lot of potential to make it like a great area, and as well as other places in town. Like we have space that I think we can use. It's just about giving, whether we give incentives for people who are going with that same goal as us and trying to provide that for our residents, or we charge people more who aren't doing that. We got to find some kind of way to try to funnel it a little more in that direction. My other point with that is it's also tough when you live in Kelowna because it's such a beautiful, desired city. That's always going to be, there's always going to be people flocking here. And the reality of it is we can definitely take steps to help. But it's a little tougher when you have such a desirable place where there's constantly people from out of town coming to visit, and it's a little bit trickier to manage, but I think there's definitely a few steps we could take to combat that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And the thing about Kelowna too is that it's such a interesting city in that it's kind of looked at as a small town, but it's also growing so rapidly.
Crazy
we have
fast.
different cultures from, Nigeria and Australia and lots of different people that have initially, I hadn't seen like 10 years ago here. And it's amazing to see. And I just wish that, Kelowna would sort of more so go into a transition phase that ultimately ends up being a more, it sort of does act more like a big city versus, kind of what it's doing now. You know what I mean?
Well, and this is the whole dynamic of all this. It's like I've been stressing that what turned Kelowna into that and what's given Kelowna that potential to make that flip are our homegrown people. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that people from outside haven't made an impact, but our farmers and all these other stuff who kind of started Kelowna, they're the heart of the city in a lot of ways. And they're kind of like what gave us our agriculture and everything else. Like, it's such of high importance in our city, like our wineries and everything else. It's so crucial to how we operate. And I think that, we definitely need to, we don't want to lose touch of that, but we're also at a point where, like you said, the facts are the facts. And like sooner or later, we can't deny that we're going to be turning into kind of like a bigger city. Yeah. So it's finding the balance between, you don't want to feel like you're just, this is such a tricky topic because no matter how you put it, it's like I just want everyone to be taken care of, and as much as I want everyone from everywhere else to also be taken care of, hopefully just not at the expense of the people that have kind of like put their blood, sweat, and tears into Kelowna. I guess is where I'm going. Not that anyone's better than anyone else. It's just tricky to like maintain that happiness through everyone, like the people moving here and the people who have lived here and are trying to kind of like maintain what they've always known. So it's tricky, and it's really, and I think that we can make that switch. And I think that Kelowna has so much to offer, and we have so many amazing things that draw people to our city year round. And, it's not impossible. And I think if done right, we could be such a superstar, you know what I mean? Within everywhere. And we just need to kind of clean up a little bit of our image. I feel like our image has gotten a little away from us, like with just, like everyone seems to be, I don't want to touch too much on that. They're partying, all that other stuff. Clean up our image a little bit, grow the city in a proper way, and I think that we have a lot of potential to be great,
Yeah, absolutely. So. If there's one thing that you could accomplish with Kelowna, what would that be?
You know what? It's tough. Like I said, my whole thing from the start was this might sound cheesy, and I'm not trying to say that I'm anyone who's like inspirational, but I truly want to inspire people. And like all this political stuff is kind of political stuff, but at the heart of it all, like I walked through with you at the start of the interview about how my life has had a lot of kind of like different phases in it. And a lot of times where I had to really dig deep and really figure it out how I was going to get back on the path that I wanted to get on and be who I wanted to be. And I know a lot of people who I know that they have that in them, and I know they do. And I know that sometimes you just got to see someone doing that or like taking that step, or like, I've had some people say like, Jeff, I really admire that you just like, you entered this and like no matter what the outcome, you said you wanted to do it and you did it. And like, and I've had other people email me like this one buddy of mine who, it's funny because I really looked up to him when we were working together, and he sent me a message a couple weeks ago saying how my work ethic with my music and like everything I've been doing, he's like, I want to tell you that watching you has totally inspired me. And he had ended up taking a certain class at his university, like something that he had kind of been iffy about, but he was like, you know what, like watching you do what you've been doing and just like trying to step up and do these things. He's like, I went and did it. He's like, I want to thank you so much so for me, like that one person
Yeah.
That one person was enough for me. Like, I don't care about, it's not a popularity contest. I don't care about, like, that's not important to me. I want people to look within themselves and feel like they have the power to be the better version of themselves. And I'm just trying to show that I've had ups and downs, but I've always kind of like come out learning the lesson and trying to improve and like not go through that again. And same with this council thing. It's like I wanted to step out of my comfort zone and push myself and learn about something that I'm interested in and something that I think I could do a good job of, but I just took that leap. You can think about it, you can talk about it, you can do everything else, but I think that's my main message is I want to get on council to prove that when you put your mind to something and, if you just kind of take that leap of faith, you can really do a lot, whether that was with my music, whether it works out with this council thing. I've never been afraid to try to better myself and learn. So that's just my goal. And I don't want to have a political goal because I feel like that's what's ruining politics. Like, what happened to just being a good person and trying to, that's what's important to me. Yeah. I want to be a good person and include everyone and everyone feel like they are special and have something to offer. And that's the most important thing. So
yeah, 100%. Yeah. Politics is a very, very complicated issue nowadays. And honestly, Jeff, I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours, but to respect your time constraints, I will end the interview right there. Thank you so much for being a part of the show, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was a great time.
Yeah, thank you. That was Jeff Piattelli. He is running for city council. Please vote for whoever you feel is most fitting to your needs. And please follow Jeff Piattelli on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I believe you have a Twitter as well.
Yeah.
Yep. All at Jeff.
Mostly Facebook and Instagram, or mostly Facebook and Instagram.
Yep, absolutely. And make sure you follow us at For the Culture Canada podcast on all major streaming platforms. Don't forget to rate our show if you like it. And also, please follow us also on Instagram and Facebook as well. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it a lot. Have a great day, y'all.